Well, it really is fantastic to be here. I've never been to Aberdeen before. I had no idea how absolutely beautiful the countryside was. I came in yesterday morning. It was, I'm told, a bit dreichy. Not quite sure what that means, but there it was. But still a very beautiful place. And been talking to people from around the town and trying to understand a little of the many exciting things that God seems to be doing in this city. One of the things I didn't mention when I was asked a couple of questions about my life that I think I need to confess to you before we go any further is that I used to work in advertising. So you can trust every word you hear from me today. I have to confess too that I absolutely loved it. I loved the people, the creativity, the pace, and the lunches were really quite fantastic. And this afternoon I want to look at an overall question which I'm sure is on your hearts. The question, if you like, of how can we reach the UK, or more particularly, perhaps, how can we reach Scotland? A mission question. And look at it particularly as it relates to Encounter's focus on discipleship. Now, clearly, you can't do everything in a short time. So I want to just offer you, for your consideration, a little piece of the jigsaw as we, in the London Institute, see it. I'm going to suggest that there are two key barriers to our effectiveness in mission today in this land. And the first is a theological barrier, a way of thinking, if you like. And the second is a method barrier, a way that we do things. And before I go any further, I want to tell you just a little bit about the London Institute, because I think it's relevant to what I've got to say to you this afternoon. When I'm asked about London Institute, I often use the example of somebody who is widely regarded as the most admired person in post-war British culture. Somebody guaranteed to save the world once every 3 years. And that, of course, is this man, Bond, James Bond. Now, as perhaps you know, James Bond isn't widely acclaimed in Christian circles for reasons which may be apparent to you. Though I think I would submit to you that there is hardly a man here today who has not at some point in his life imagined himself to be Bond, James Bond. Though, if truth be told, most of us are a little bit more like Johnny English, sort of. I thought I'd get that impression over to begin with, because you will realise that actually I am Rowan Atkinson in my spare time. You do wonder why he's not making many television programmes, now you know. Still, Bond has many qualities to recommend him. He is courageous, persevering and resourceful, always the master of technology, never its slave. He is decisive and patriotic. He may, like Samson, sleep with the enemy, but unlike Samson, he never gives away secrets critical to national security. He is strong, agile, multi-skilled, intelligent, witty, cultured and honest. And as one rather honest woman screamed out at one particular event, he's also gorgeous. He's also, unfortunately, a male chauvinist pig, an emotional desert, and a spiritual black hole. But apart from that, when James Bond goes on his missions to save the world, 5 things are true. He's properly briefed, he's properly trained, he's properly resourced, he's properly supported, and he is properly commissioned. He is sent out, is he not? Licensed to kill, if you like. He is sent out for his mission in the world. And when we overall, and I'm not projecting anything on any community here, on any individual here, but when we in London Institute ask nationally, do research nationally amongst adult Christians today, and we ask them, do you feel yourselves to be properly briefed, trained, resourced, supported and commissioned for your role in the world? On the whole, they say that they are not. And that's why John Stott, founded the London Institute, because he saw with great clarity that somehow the Church of God was not able, and the theological colleges serving him, somehow we were not able to take this living word of God and connect it to our real everyday lives. And so we now have an institute trying to address those issues with a number of people, and if you want to have a look at some of that stuff, then there's a stand outside and ways to connect to us. Now this issue of are we actually equipped to live our lives today became more sharply clear to us a couple of years ago when we did some research amongst 750 Christians across the nation, primarily from an evangelical stable in something called Imagine How We Can Reach the UK, What the People Said. And what the people were saying to us was, yes, that they were finding it difficult to share their faith, and we sort of knew that. But what we didn't know was that the vast majority of people were actually saying, we're actually finding it difficult to live our faith in this culture. All these issues coming at us, with people struggling with issues at work, with how to parent today, with older parents, with singleness, with debt, with addictions, with getting older, with loneliness. How do we live this life today? And frankly, I don't know that it's any different for me. I think these are, if you like, bewildering times. Issues seem to come at me all the time. You know, I'm putting the time he was 10, my 10-year-old to bed, Tommy, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and we've prayed and read the Bible together, and Tommy, you know, is figuring out a way to keep his dad in the room. So what do you do? Well, he could ask me about Tottenham Hotspur. That would not be a long conversation because they're not that good at the moment. Or, you know, he could ask me, what do you do with the Executive Director of the London Institute for Contemporary Christianity? Ask him a question about religion. That'll keep him in the room. So he says to me, Dad, why isn't the Quran more reliable than the Bible? After all, it was written 600 years later. It's a pretty good question. Good night. And at one level, it's not an academic question for him because in his class, in his school, 50% of the boys in his class are Muslims. So he actually needs to know and be able to know in language he can understand why his scriptures, inspired over centuries, witnessed by hundreds of people, are more reliable than a set of scriptures apparently dictated by God, witnessed by only one person in a cave on their own. He needs to know why those documents are more reliable. Not in an aggressive, I'm right, you're wrong way, but in some way. And then my son, my older son, we're walking to school, walking to the tube with him, and he says, Dad, the son of the vicar in my class thinks the world is 5,700 years old. Sorry, 6,400 years old. And my Jewish friend thinks the world is just over 5,700 years old. And my geography teacher thinks the world is 13.4 billion years old. Can you give me the answer by supper time? And again, this isn't a trivial question because actually the bloke who's asking about these questions he's engaging with is someone who 2 years ago prayed that his parents would not be divorced. A good prayer. And they were. So there's other things going on. And it's not just about issues, is it? It's not like if we could just get a checklist of all the issues that there are and we could just have a good answer for all of those, it would be fine. It's actually the whole way, the whole texture of life today that we need to engage with. That's the issue. And why is this so important for mission? Well, it's important for mission because if I cannot say to my neighbour, you know, the gospel makes a difference to my everyday life, what kind of gospel do I actually have? If I can't say to my work colleague, whose number one issue, as it is the number one issue for people who are in paid secular work, who are Christians, my number one issue is this stressful work-life thing. I don't know how to crack it. And if I can't actually say to that person, well, you know, Jesus makes a difference in my life in that regard, even if he doesn't make it all go away, actually he resources me in it. If I can't say the gospel makes a difference there, what sort of gospel do I have? If my neighbour's major issue is their fractious marriage, and I can't say, well, actually, you know, Jesus has helped me and my wife through issues in our marriage. Maybe he hasn't made all of them go away, but actually we feel like he's with us. If I can't say that, what kind of a gospel do I have? What kind of a gospel do I actually have? Do I have a leisure time gospel, just something that works in the evenings and the weekends? Do I have a gospel that promises heaven? And it does, and it is wondrous, but somehow doesn't actually affect life on earth? See, the gospel is truth. Yes, it is true, and we must not lose sight of that, particularly in this week. But the gospel, is it not also a way and a life? A way and a life? After all, the gospel of Jesus is not just a way into heaven, it's a way on in life. It's not just a way in, it's a way on. So we need a gospel. We need a gospel that is not only true, but that has power. As Paul says, it has power unto salvation. And he meant much more than just getting into heaven by the word salvation. And what's interesting is, of course, what are people in our culture yearning for? What are the deep yearnings? And we've done quite a bit of research on this. And, you know, I simplify it, if you like, and I hope not to the point where it's not useful, in 4 words. Authenticity, adventure, or agape or acceptance, love, if you like, quadruple A Christianity, for those of you interested in batteries. That's what people are looking for. Authenticity. People are looking for something or someone who is actually authentic.